Barely conscious, my daughter murmured. My Emil said this was your fate. And my brother. October had the kind of cold that didn't bite so much as seep. It pressed through denim and wool, slid under cuffs, settled in the bones like it intended to rent space there all winter. The air smelled of wet leaves and woodsmoke, and the clouds hung low over the fields, turning dusk into an early night. I drove my old sedan down the rutted county track with the careful confidence of someone who had memorized every dip and rut over decades. The car complained, but it kept going. It always had. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. My name is Raina Vaughn. I'm 56, a widow, and the kind of woman people think they know because they've seen me behind a clinic desk, at bake sales, or kneeling in a garden row with my hands deep in the soil. I retired from nursing a few years back and traded fluorescent lights for the steady rhythm of tending a small plot of land and spoiling my grandkids when they visited. My life was quiet in ways that felt earned. In ways that made me believe, most days, that storms belong to other people. Even here, though, quiet never meant invisible. In a small rural county where everyone's family tree was common knowledge, my face marked me as an old story with teeth. My hair was black as river water. My skin was deep brown, warm even in winter light. My eyes were dark enough that some folks said, with a mixture of awe and caution, that you couldn't hide anything from me. Mixed blood, they'd whispered since I was a girl, sometimes as praise, sometimes as warning. I stopped correcting people a long time ago. I just lived. I raised my daughter. I did my work. I kept my dignity in a place that liked to test it. I was thinking about apples and jam, about whether I'd bought enough sugar, when the phone in my coat pocket erupted with its shrill old-fashioned ring. The screen showed an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer. Rural calls from numbers you didn't know were usually wrong numbers or sales pitches. Something in my chest tightened anyway. Hello. A man's voice came through, out of breath, clipped, urgent. Is this Raina Vaughn? Yes. I'm sorry to call like this. You need to come quick. The woods past the gravel pit, off County 12. Do you know it? The question made my hands go cold on the steering wheel. I know it. Why? My name's Calvin. I hunt out by the creek. I found your daughter. She's alive, but she's hurt badly. She had her wallet. Your number's listed. For a moment, sound dropped away, like the world had stepped back to watch me fall. I braked too hard, the tires sliding on wet clay. My heart thudded so loudly it seemed to fill the car. My daughter, I said, and my voice didn't sound like mine. Lena. Yes, ma'am. I called emergency services, but it'll take time to get here. You need to come. How? My throat closed. How bad? She's conscious, but barely. I didn't move her much. Didn't want to make anything worse. Stay with her, I said, already turning the car around right in the road. I'm coming. The sedan bumped and rattled as I pushed it faster than it liked along the cut-through trail. Branches clawed at the windows. The headlights caught tree trunks in sudden flashes, like pale bones in the dark. I couldn't stop seeing Lena as she'd been the last time I'd hugged her. Sleek hair, manicured nails, perfume that smelled expensive, her arms careful around me like she was afraid my life would stain hers. Lena was 32. Smart, stubborn, beautiful in a way that made doors open before she even touched the handle. She'd married into money 8 years earlier. Married a man named Grant Holcomb, heir to a construction empire in the state capital. The wedding had been glossy and grand, photographed like a magazine spread. I'd smiled until my cheeks ached and told myself she'd earned a better life. Afterward, the phone calls got shorter. The visits got rarer. Whenever I asked if she was happy, she answered with the same polite sentence, like it had been trained into her. Everything's fine, Mama. Don't worry. I was worried anyway. Mothers didn't stop just because their children moved into marble kitchens. The gravel pit appeared like a dark wound in the land, an abandoned scar overgrown by young pine and wild grass. A pickup sat on the shoulder, doors open. A man in a camo jacket paced near it, a thermos in one hand like he didn't know what to do with it. I slammed my car into park and ran before the engine even settled. "Where is she?" He pointed, face tight. "Back there. About 100 yards. I put my jacket under her. I tried to keep her warm. I didn't wait for more. The woods swallowed me. The ground was soaked, sucking at my boots. Branches slapped my cheeks. I fell once, caught myself on a sapling, and kept going with a single word pounding in my head. Lena. When I saw her, my stomach turned over like a wave. She was curled on her side, half hidden in weeds, hair tangled, clothes torn and dirt-streaked. She looked like someone had taken the polished version of her and dragged it through the earth until it didn't shine anymore. "Baby," I breathed, dropping to my knees. My hands hovered, afraid to touch wrong. Afraid to hurt her more. "Lena. I'm here. I'm here." One eye was swollen. The other opened slowly, unfocused at first, then finding me. Her mouth moved as if forming my name and failing. "Ambulance is coming," I told her, though I didn't know if that was true anymore. "Just hold on." She tried to push herself up and made a small sound that wasn't a scream but hurt to hear anyway. Her arm lay at an angle that made my nurse's instincts go rigid and sharp. I swallowed hard. "Who did this?" I asked, and my voice came out steady in a way that surprised me. Her lips trembled. I tipped the thermos to her mouth carefully. She sipped, coughed, blinked as if the warmth helped her climb back toward the surface. Then she whispered, barely louder than wind through needles. "Marion." For a second, I didn't understand. Then the name landed in my chest. Marion Holcomb. Her mother-in-law. "No," I said, because my mind rejected it like poison. "No, that's..." Lena's fingers closed weakly around my wrist. She said, "I don't belong. That my blood is wrong." Something hot cracked through my fear. Rage, clean and terrifying, swept up from a place I didn't visit often. Marion had never liked me. She'd treated me like a smudge on the edge of her family portrait. I'd endured it for Lena. I swallowed it for peace. But this wasn't contempt. This was cruelty. A siren wailed somewhere far off, thin through the trees. Lena's eyes widened with sudden panic. "No hospital," she rasped. "No. They have people. Everywhere. Lena, you need help." "She'll..." Her breath hitched. "She'll finish it. Grant will let her. He always does." The siren grew louder. My mind raced faster than my heart could keep up. What was right on paper wasn't always safe in a world where money could smooth sharp edges and bury inconvenient truths. I'd seen it in small ways in small towns. How certain families always landed on their feet, no matter what broke beneath them. I looked back toward the road where the hunter waited, where an ambulance would arrive any minute. I thought of my father's father, an old soldier who had taught me that survival was sometimes choosing the least obvious path. "If it doesn't make sense," he used to say, "you're missing the part someone doesn't want you to see." "What happened?" I demanded gently. "Tell me enough so I can decide." Lena swallowed, eyes glossy. "I found papers. In Grant's safe. Money from the charity. The one Marion runs. It's not going where it's supposed to." The picture formed in jagged pieces. A respected foundation. Big donors. Smiling photos. And behind it, a river of money diverted into darkness. "She took me out here," Lena whispered. She'd explain. Then she closed her eyes, shaking. "She left me. Like trash." The siren rose. Close now. Blue light flickered between trees. I made a decision so fast it felt like something else decided for me. I had been a nurse for 30 years. I knew how to splint a fracture, how to clean wounds, how to keep someone breathing. I also knew what powerful people could do when they wanted a story to disappear. "We're going," I said. "Home." Lena stared, then nodded once, desperate. I hooked her good arm over my shoulder and got her upright, inch by inch, ignoring the way my own muscles screamed. We moved like that, slow, stumbling, toward the road. The hunter saw us and cursed under his breath. "Ma'am, the ambulance." "Listen," I said quickly, leaning in so my voice stayed low. "This is not safe. Her attacker has influence. I can care for her. I am trained. Please, help me get her out of here." His eyes flicked from Lena's face to mine, weighing truth like a man who'd lived long enough to recognize fear that wasn't acting. He nodded once, sharp. "I'll talk to them. Get her in your car." I didn't thank him with words. I couldn't spare my breath. I got Lena into my passenger seat, buckled her as gently as I could, and drove away as the ambulance's lights washed the trees behind us. Lena leaned her head back, face pale in the dash glow. "They won't stop," she whispered. "Now I know too much." "We know someone," I said, and the thought steadied me. "Someone who doesn't scare easily." Her eyes cracked open. "Who?" "My brother," I said. "Reese. He still remembers what our granddad taught us." When we reached my house, old wood, sagging porch, smoke smell baked into the walls, I carried her inside like she was small again. I built a fire fast. I cleaned what I could. I splintered her wrist with practiced hands that shook only when I thought she wasn't watching. Then I pulled out my phone and typed a message I never imagined I'd send. "Reese. Emergency. Lena's been hurt. Dangerous people. Come now. Remember Granddad's rules. It's our turn." Outside, the cold pressed against the windows. Inside, my daughter slept in broken breaths, and my calm life, my ordinary life, fell away like a husk. Night deepened, and with it came the kind of silence that made every creak of the house sound like a footstep. I kept the lamps low, the curtains closed. My hands moved automatically, cleaning cuts, checking Lena's pupils, counting her breaths. Old skills didn't ask permission. They simply returned. When she woke up, she asked for her bag. "My phone," she said. I took pictures. The code she gave me was a date that made my throat tighten, an old, shared memory. I opened the gallery and scrolled through image after image of documents. Transfers. Invoices. Names that sounded generic, too clean to be real. My nursing brain didn't know finance, but my life knew lies. These papers smelled like a lie trying to dress itself as truth. Lena spoke slowly, each sentence costing her. The charity foundation Marion ran had been moving money through companies that didn't do anything. The money went out, then vanished offshore. When Lena asked questions, Marion didn't explain. She tried to remove the problem. "And there's more," Lena whispered. "I'm pregnant." The words hit me with a mix of joy and terror so sharp my eyes stung. "How far?" 12 weeks. I sat very still, letting the rage settle into something colder and more useful. Marion hadn't just attacked my daughter. She'd attacked a child not yet born. A message buzzed in, "My brother Reese." Short and blunt. "On my way. Don't call anyone. Turn off your phones. They can track." I looked at Lena's car keyring, remembered Grant insisting months ago that he'd take care of maintenance on my old sedan at his family's preferred shop. I went outside with a flashlight and checked under the frame. A small black box blinked faint red. My hands didn't shake when I tore it off. I brought it inside and set it on the table like a dead insect. "They've been watching," I told Lena. Her face tightened in sick understanding. "So they'll come. Then we'll be ready." I opened a drawer I hadn't touched in years and pulled out a worn holster. The pistol inside wasn't new, wasn't flashy. It was old, reliable, like the man who taught me how to hold it safely, how to breathe, how to aim only if you truly meant it. When Reese arrived near dawn, he didn't knock the way polite people did. He tapped a pattern only family used, then came in with eyes that scanned corners before they ever found faces. He looked older than the last time I'd seen him, but his posture was still that soldier straight line. He took one look at Lena and the tracker on the table, and something in his expression hardened into purpose. "We move," he said. "Not far. Somewhere they won't expect." He talked about our grandfather's old hunting cabin, deep in the woods, reachable only by rough trails. A place built for hiding, for weather, for endurance. "And medical?" I asked. "I've got a friend," Reese said. "A doctor who doesn't ask questions twice. He'll come to us." We left that evening, slipping out while the sky turned the color of bruised steel. I left the tracker behind on the porch rail, blinking away like a decoy. Let them think the bait stayed home. The drive was brutal. Lena winced at every bump, but she didn't complain. When we finally reached the cabin, a small log structure by a dark, still lake, Reese lit a lamp and checked windows the way some people checked locks. "We breathe here," he said. "Then we plan." The doctor arrived the next morning, a compact man with a weathered face and hands steady as stone. Reese tested him with a question only someone from his past could answer. The doctor answered without hesitation and stepped inside. He examined Lena carefully, spoke in calm, measured phrases. "Bruising. Broken ribs, but not punctured. Wrist fracture. Likely concussion. The baby's heartbeat is present. Stable." I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until my lungs burned for air. Lena cried silently, relief sliding down her cheeks. The doctor left pain medicines safe for pregnancy, instructions strict as law, and one final warning. This wasn't random. The pattern of injury suggests intent. Be careful. After he went, Reese sat at a laptop he'd brought. "Offline," he said, "safer." He made calls from a payphone in a nearby town. He leaned on old contacts, people who owed him, people who trusted him. By evening, he had something that made his jaw clench. "Your mother-in-law's foundation has moved hundreds of millions in 7 years, he told Lena. "And a big chunk can't be traced to real charity work. Shell companies. Offshore routes." Lena's face drained. "So it's real." "And," Reese added, "someone tried to look into it 2 years back. A journalist. After that, he had a car accident, and his investigation died with his mobility." The cabin felt smaller, the air tighter. We weren't dealing with petty cruelty. We were dealing with a system that had practiced erasing problems. "So what do we do?" I asked. Reese didn't answer immediately. He stared at the lake through the window as if it could offer strategy. Then he said, "We don't go to the local police. We haven't gone public yet. We go to someone Marion can't order around." Lena's eyes lifted slowly. "Arthur." Her father-in-law. Grant's father. The man whose business reputation was bigger than his family reputation. Reese nodded. "If we can make him understand this threatens the empire, he'll act." "And if he doesn't?" I asked. "Then we adjust," Reese said. "But first we try the route that makes the most sense." He drafted a message, short, factual, attached with images of the documents Lena photographed. He included evidence of accounts in Marion's name that looked hidden. Enough to spark panic in a man who valued control. We sent it through a secure channel Reese trusted. Then we waited. The response came faster than any of us expected. A single line. A time. A place. A demand that we come alone. Reese snorted. "He won't be alone. Neither will we." The diner we chose sat downtown in a well-lit district where people ate late and strangers blended into background noise. Reese had friends positioned without looking like friends. At the counter, near the window, by the door. The whole place smelled like coffee and fried onions, like ordinary life. That was the point. Powerful people behaved better in public. Arthur Hale arrived looking like a man built out of discipline, silver at the temples, suit immaculate, eyes flat with calculation. He sat alone, stirring coffee as if he had all the time in the world. Reese approached first. I followed a minute later, carrying the folder like it weighed more than paper. Arthur didn't waste words. "You're accusing my wife of attacking my daughter-in-law." "We're stating what happened," Reese said. I placed photos of Lena's injuries in front of him. Not the worst angles, not the kind meant to shock, but enough to show the truth. She's pregnant, I said. And she named Marion as the attacker. Arthur's jaw tightened. His gaze flicked over the images, then lifted to mine. Motive. We gave him the papers. The foundation transfers. The shell companies. The hidden accounts. We told him Lena found the truth and Marion tried to bury it. Arthur read without speaking. When he looked up, his voice was quieter. What do you want? Safety, I said. For my daughter and her baby. A clean separation from your family. And Marion kept far away. Arthur's eyes narrowed. And you'll stay silent. Reese answered calmly. We aren't chasing headlines. We're chasing survival. Arthur held the folder like it might burn him. If this is real, he said, it endangers everything I built. Then you understand, Reese said. There was a long pause where Arthur looked like a man balancing two ledgers, one labeled family, one labeled power. When he finally spoke, it was with the tone of someone making a business decision that felt personal. I'll handle it, he said. My way. I watched him carefully. No violence. He gave a small, humorless exhale. I don't need violence to ruin Marion. Taking away what she worships will be enough. He promised divorce papers, protection, and distance. He left with the documents gathered under his arm, his expression carved from stone. As we drove back to the cabin, Reese kept checking mirrors. I kept imagining every set of headlights was someone else. But the road stayed empty, and when the cabin finally appeared, the relief hit me so hard my hands went numb. Lena listened to the deal in silence. Then she closed her eyes and said, I believe him. So do I, Reese said. Men like that keep promises when breaking them costs more than keeping them. A week passed with the slow, stubborn pace of healing. Lena's bruises softened from dark purple to sickly yellow. Her breathing hurt less. The baby's heartbeat stayed steady when the doctor checked again. Arthur delivered what he said he would. Divorce papers. Financial support. A house deed in Lena's name in a quiet town not far from mine. He made it clear Marion would not contact us again. She's gone, Reese said when he returned from meeting Arthur. Officially, treatment abroad. Unofficially, exile. Lena didn't cheer. She didn't cry. She just stared at the fire as if she was watching the last of a nightmare burn out. Later, Arthur came himself, alone, plain coat, no entourage. He apologized without excuses. He asked, carefully, if he could be part of the baby's life someday. He didn't demand it. He didn't bargain. He offered presence on Lena's terms. Lena considered him for a long time, then said, You can be a grandfather if you respect our boundaries. But this child will be raised as mine, no pretending, no sudden performances from people who failed me. Arthur accepted it with a nod that looked like relief. When the baby was born, a girl with dark, intent eyes, Lena named her Zora, after the ancestor who had endured the kind of contempt Marion had tried to weaponize. The name felt like a reclaiming, a refusal to be shamed. Life didn't become perfect. It became real. Sleepless nights. Small laughter. The slow rebuilding of trust in a world that had tried to break it. Reese stayed close. I stayed closer. And Arthur, to his credit, stayed careful, learning how to show up without taking over. Then, months later, the last ghost arrived. Grant, pale and shaking, asking to see the baby. Lena stood between him and the cradle without raising her voice. She didn't need volume. She had clarity. No, she said. Not after what you allowed. Not after what you knew. He left with his shoulders collapsed, and for the first time I saw Lena exhale like someone stepping out of a room that had been filled with smoke for years. One evening, as autumn returned and the air turned sharp again, Lena sat on the porch with Zora asleep against her chest. She looked out over the fields and said, almost softly, I used to think strength meant grand gestures. But it's really this. The quiet choices. Protecting what matters. Starting over. I watched my daughter, no longer the polished woman in someone else's house, but the grounded mother in her own life. And I understood something I hadn't fully understood until that terrible night in the woods. They had called our blood wrong. They had called it dirty. But it was the blood of survivors. And now it ran forward into a new generation, carrying not shame, but backbone. The fire took a long time to catch. The wood had absorbed the damp of early winter, and smoke curled stubbornly before the flames finally bit and spread. I knelt by the hearth, feeding it slivers of birch, listening to Lena's breathing from the sofa behind me. Each inhale sounded shallow, guarded, as if her body were afraid to trust the air. When the room finally warmed, I turned back to her. She lay very still, eyes half closed, one hand resting protectively over her abdomen. In the flicker of firelight, she looked younger than her years, stripped of the polish and confidence she wore like armor in the city. For the first time in a long while, she looked like my child again. "Does it hurt when you breathe?" I asked quietly. "Yes," she admitted. "But it's manageable." That word, manageable, had always been her way of saying she was afraid but unwilling to ask for more. I recognized it instantly and hated it. I fetched blankets, layered them over her carefully, then sat on the edge of the chair closest to her, refusing to let distance settle between us. Outside, the wind moved through the trees with a low, restless sigh. Somewhere far off, a dog barked, then went silent again. "Mom," she said after a while, her voice barely above the crackle of the fire. "If Reese hadn't answered, if you hadn't come." "Don't," I said. "We don't finish those sentences." She nodded, though her eyes glistened. Silence stretched again, heavier this time, filled with everything neither of us wanted to say aloud. Finally, she turned her head toward me. "I should have listened to you," she said. "All those times you asked if I was really happy." I took her uninjured hand in mine. "You were trying to build a life. There's no shame in that." "There is when you ignore the warning signs," she said bitterly. "I saw who Marian was from the beginning. The way she looked at you. At me. Like we were temporary inconveniences." "She didn't see us as people," I said. "Only as obstacles." Lena swallowed. "Grant never defended you." I told myself it was awkward. That he didn't want conflict. I told myself a lot of things. I leaned back, studying the fire. The truth was clear now in ways it hadn't been before. Grant's weakness wasn't passive. It was active. It allowed harm. It enabled cruelty. "I thought marrying into that family meant safety," Lena continued. "Resources. Protection. I didn't realize how dangerous it is when power and entitlement live together." Outside, headlights flashed briefly across the far trees, then vanished. My muscles tensed automatically. I held still, listening. Nothing followed. Still, my pulse stayed elevated, alert. "Sleep," I told her gently. "You need rest." She hesitated, then nodded, exhaustion winning. Within minutes, her breathing deepened, uneven but steady. I didn't move. I sat there and watched her sleep like I had when she was a baby, counting breaths, memorizing the shape of her face, silently promising again that I would not fail her. The knock came just before dawn. It wasn't loud. I wasn't impatient. It was deliberate. 2 taps, pause, 1 tap. A pattern I hadn't heard in years but recognized instantly. I was on my feet before my mind caught up, hand already reaching for the pistol in the drawer. Then the taps came again, exactly the same. I crossed the room quietly, eased the door open a crack. Reese stood on the porch, duffel bag slung over one shoulder, eyes sharp, scanning the darkness behind me before he even looked at my face. "Hey sis," he said softly. I pulled him inside without a word and shut the door, locking it behind us. Only then did the tension ease enough for my throat to tighten. "She's alive," I said before he could ask. "Good," he replied simply. Show me. He crossed the room in long, quiet strides and stopped when he saw Lena. His jaw clenched, the soldier in him recognizing damage even without details. Who did this? He asked. Her mother-in-law. Reese exhaled slowly, controlled. Money family? Yes. Of course, he muttered. They always are. I showed him the tracker, the phone photos, and filled in what Lena had told me. He listened without interrupting, eyes narrowing slightly as the picture formed. They won't stop, he said when I finished. Not now. Not while she's breathing. That's what I thought. He nodded once. We move her. Somewhere off the map. I hesitated. She can't travel far. We don't need far, he said. We need to be invisible. The cabin came back to me immediately, vivid as if I'd been there yesterday instead of years ago. The memory of pine smoke, cold water, my grandfather's voice explaining which paths not to take because they were too obvious. I remember, I said. So do I, Reese replied. He waited while I woke Lena and explained. She didn't argue. Fear had burned through denial already. An hour later, we were loading the car in silence, moving with the practiced coordination of people who had packed for emergencies before. Reese checked the road twice before we pulled away. I left the tracker where it was, blinking uselessly in the growing light. The drive into the forest felt longer than it was. Every sound seemed amplified. Every shadow felt like it might move. Reese drove carefully but decisively, avoiding main roads, turning where logic said not to. When the cabin finally emerged from the trees, squat and dark against the pale morning sky, relief hit me so hard my knees threatened to give out. Inside, it smelled like dust and old wood. Reese lit the lantern, then methodically checked the windows, the doorframe, and the surrounding tree line. This'll do, he said. I settled Lena on the narrow bed, layered blankets around her, checked her pulse again. She watched me with tired eyes. You always know what to do, she murmured. No, I corrected gently. I just keep moving. Reese stepped outside to make a call from the satellite phone he'd brought. I heard his voice low and controlled, words clipped, precise. When he returned, he set a medical bag on the table. Dr. Friend, he said. Former military. He'll be here by morning. I nodded, gratitude too heavy for words. That night, the forest wrapped around the cabin like a living thing. The wind moved through the branches, the lake ice cracked softly, and somewhere an owl called. Reese took the first watch, sitting near the window with the pistol resting easily in his hand, posture relaxed but alert. I lay on the bunk beside Lena, listening to her breathe, to the quiet resilience of the place. My thoughts wandered to my grandmother, to the stories she told me when I was young. Stories about surviving not by force alone, but by understanding people, systems, fear itself. They will underestimate you, she used to say, because they think strength looks only one way. I closed my eyes and held on to that truth. By morning, the cabin smelled faintly of coffee and antiseptic. The doctor arrived exactly when Reese said he would, a stocky man with calm eyes and hands that didn't shake even when he saw Lena's injuries. He worked efficiently, professionally, speaking just enough to keep us informed. When he turned the ultrasound screen toward us and pointed out the faint, rapid flicker of a heartbeat, Lena cried openly, relief breaking through her pain. You're lucky, he said. Both of you. After he left, Reese didn't waste time. Now, he said, opening his laptop. We prepare. I watched him work, calling old contacts, mapping connections, pulling threads. And as the hours passed, I understood something clearly for the first time. We were no longer running. We were positioning ourselves. And somewhere far away, Marian Holcomb believed her problem had been solved in a cold patch of woods. She was wrong. The cabin settled into a rhythm after that, the kind born of necessity rather than comfort. Reese worked in bursts, tapping at the keyboard, pausing to think, stepping outside to make calls where the trees could swallow sound. I focused on Lena. Food in small portions. Medication on schedule. gentle movement to keep her lungs clear without stressing the ribs. At night, I listened for changes in her breathing the way I once listened for monitors in hospital rooms. She slept a lot, but when she was awake, her mind was sharp, restless. "They're going to say I misunderstood the documents," she said once, staring at the low ceiling. "That I'm emotional. That pregnancy makes women paranoid." "They always say that," I replied. "It's easier than admitting the truth." She turned her head toward me. "You believe me." "I know you," I said simply. "And I know greed when I see it." Outside, the weather shifted. A thin crust of snow appeared overnight, softening the forest, muting sound. Reese returned from a call with a look I recognized too well. Focused, controlled, dangerous in its calm. "I've got confirmation," he said quietly. "The foundation's been flagged internally before. Quietly buried. Someone with influence shut it down." Lena closed her eyes. "So she's been protected all along?" "Yes," Reese answered. "But not from everything." He laid out papers on the table. Printouts, diagrams, timelines. He'd mapped the flow of money like a battlefield, arrows showing movement, names marked and crossed out. I didn't understand all the details, but I understood enough. "She didn't just steal," Reese continued. "She hid it from her husband. Offshore accounts in her maiden name. That's not about charity. That's about escape." I felt a slow, grim satisfaction settle in my chest. People like Marion didn't fear morality. They feared exposure. "She's careful," Lena said. "Obsessively so. Reputation is everything to her." "Good," Reese replied. "That's leverage." That night, I dreamed of the woods again, not as they were when I found Lena, but older, deeper, layered with memories. I dreamed of my grandfather teaching Reese and me how to move silently, how to read the ground, how to wait. When I woke, my hands were clenched, but my mind was clear. The message to Arthur Hale was drafted before noon. Reese wrote it like a report, not an accusation. Dates. Figures. Copies of documents. No threats. No demands. Just facts arranged in a way that forced a response. Lena watched him send it, her face unreadable. "Do you think he'll believe us?" she asked. "I think he'll believe his own accountants," Reese said. "And I think he'll want to know why his wife has money he doesn't." The reply came faster than expected. A time. A place. Neutral ground. Downtown. Public. "He's curious," Reese said. "And that's enough." The next hours were a strange mix of waiting and preparation. Reese coordinated with people I didn't know, former colleagues, men who spoke little but understood risk instinctively. I packed the documents into a plain leather case. Careful, methodical. Lena rested, but I could see tension in her jaw even as she slept. "I should go," she said suddenly when she woke up. "I should be there when you talk to him." "No," Reese and I said at the same time. She frowned. "This is my life. And this is about keeping you alive," I replied firmly. "Your job is to heal. Ours is to make sure you can." She looked between us, then slowly nodded, though I could see the frustration in her eyes. She had spent years being quiet, accommodating. This was different. This was taking control by trusting others. Before we left, Reese knelt in front of her. "I'll bring you answers," he said. "And I'll bring you safety." She reached out and squeezed his hand. "Come back." "We will," I promised. The drive to the city felt surreal after days of forest silence. Buildings rose, lights glared, traffic hummed. Reese parked several blocks away from the diner, scanning reflections, watching patterns. Inside, the diner smelled like oil and sugar and coffee that had been sitting too long. Ordinary people filled the booths. Laughter drifted. Life went on. Arthur Hale was already there. He looked exactly as I'd imagined, composed, authoritative, controlled. He watched us approach without moving, assessing, calculating. Reese sat first. I followed, setting the briefcase between us like a boundary. Arthur didn't waste time. You claim my wife attacked your daughter, he said. We're stating what happened, Reese replied calmly. I opened the case and slid the photos across the table. Not all of them. Just enough. Arthur's eyes flickered, something sharp passing through them before he smoothed it away. Motive, he said again. I placed the financial documents next. She tried to silence someone who discovered theft. He examined them carefully, flipping pages, pausing, returning to earlier ones. The diner noise faded for me as I watched his face. A muscle jumped in his jaw. His breathing changed, subtle, but there. This is serious, he said finally. So I was leaving a pregnant woman in the woods, I replied. He met my gaze then, really met it. For the first time, I saw not arrogance, but something like shame. What do you want? He asked. Distance, Reese said. Protection. And for Marion to never come near my niece again. And silence, Arthur added. Unless she violates those terms, I said. Then everything becomes public. Arthur leaned back, fingers steepled. For a long moment, he said nothing. I could almost hear the calculations forming, weighing loss against exposure. I will handle this, he said at last. Personally. No more violence, I said. His mouth tightened. That won't be necessary. We left shortly after, not lingering, not celebrating. Outside, the air felt different, lighter, but charged. In the car, Reese exhaled slowly. He'll act. You're sure? Yes, he said. Because this isn't just about morality. It's about control. And she broke the rules. Back at the cabin, Lena searched our faces as soon as we walked in. It's done, she asked. It started, I corrected gently. She leaned back against the pillows, exhaustion overtaking adrenaline. That's enough for now. 3 days passed. On the 4th morning, Reese returned from a call with a look I couldn't read. She's gone, he said. Lena sat up. Gone where? Officially? Abroad. Treatment. Unofficially? She's been cut loose. Accounts frozen. The influence is severe. I felt something loosen in my chest that I hadn't realized was clenched. And Grant? Lena asked quietly. He knows part of it, Reese said. Enough to end the marriage. Not enough to understand the full cost. Lena closed her eyes. Good. The doctor came again, pleased with her progress. The baby's heartbeat remained strong. Each confirmation felt like reclaiming something that had almost been taken. A week later, Arthur Hale came to the cabin. Alone. No suit. No entourage. Just a man carrying the weight of consequences. I came to apologize, he said after sitting. For my failure to see. To protect. Lena listened, silent, her expression guarded. I would like to be part of the child's life, Arthur continued carefully. If you allow it. The question hung heavy in the room. Lena thought for a long time before answering. On my terms, she said finally. No interference. No pretending nothing happened. Arthur nodded. Agreed. When he left, Lena turned to me. I don't forgive him, she said. But I don't hate him either. That's strength, I said. She smiled faintly. I'm learning. That night, as the fire burned low and the forest wrapped us in quiet again, I realized something important. We had crossed a line. Not into danger, but out of fear. And whatever came next, we would meet it standing. The cabin no longer felt like a hiding place. It felt like a threshold. Morning light filtered through the frost-lined windows, thin and pale, catching dust motes that drifted lazily in the air. I stood at the small stove, stirring oatmeal slowly, listening to the quiet sounds of life settling into a new normal. The creak of wood as the cabin warmed, the faint crackle of embers, Lena's soft footsteps as she moved carefully behind me. She had insisted on standing that morning, on doing something ordinary. I let her, watching closely, ready to intervene at the first sign of pain. "I'm not fragile," she said, reading my expression. "No," I agreed. "But you're healing." She smiled faintly and sat at the table, resting both hands over her stomach as if anchoring herself to the present. The baby had become a quiet, constant reassurance, proof that not everything had been taken, that something new insisted on growing despite violence and fear. Reese came in from outside, brushing snow from his jacket. "No movement," he reported. "No unfamiliar tracks. Nothing on the perimeter." It had been his routine every morning, and I understood why he didn't stop. Safety, once threatened, never became casual again. "Good," I said. "Eat." He did, but his mind was already elsewhere. I could see it in the way his eyes lingered on the laptop bag by the door, in the way his fingers tapped once against the table before stilling. "We're not done," he said after a moment. Lena met his gaze. "I know. Arthur handled Marion," Reese continued. "But systems don't disappear just because one person is removed. People like her don't work alone." I nodded slowly. "You think others benefited?" "I know they did," Reese replied. "The foundation was a machine. Machines don't run on one gear." Lena exhaled, thoughtful rather than afraid. "So what happens now?" Reese leaned back in his chair. "Now we make sure nothing like this can happen to you again." That afternoon, he made more calls. Some were short. Others stretched longer, his voice low and precise, choosing words carefully. When he finally closed the laptop, he looked tired, but satisfied. "I've shared everything with 2 independent auditors," he said. "Anonymous channels. Enough to force a full review without pointing back to us." Lena's eyebrows lifted. "Won't that draw attention?" "Yes," Reese said plainly. "But not the kind that can be quietly erased. Too many eyes. Too many institutions involved." I felt a flicker of pride. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't a spectacle. It was accountability, methodical and patient. "You're sure this won't come back on you?" I asked. He shrugged. "I'm careful. And I'm not alone." That night, the wind rose, rattling branches against the cabin walls. Lena woke from a nightmare just after midnight, breath shallow, eyes wide. I was at her side before she could call my name. "It's over," I murmured, stroking her hair. "You're safe." She nodded, but her hands trembled. "I keep seeing the woods," she whispered. "The way it went quiet after she left." I held her until the shaking passed. Trauma didn't care about logic. It arrived uninvited, demanded to be felt. "You survived," I said softly. "That matters." She nodded again, calmer now. "So did you." In the days that followed, the weather softened. Snow melted into dark earth. The lake ice cracked and receded, revealing water that reflected the sky like glass. Each small change felt symbolic, as if the world itself was slowly agreeing to move forward. Arthur sent documents as promised. Divorce papers, finalized with astonishing speed. Financial settlements that ensured Lena would never be dependent on anyone who had failed her. And one unexpected addition. A deed. "A house?" Lena asked, stunned. "Quiet town," Arthur explained later during a brief call. "Far enough from the city. Close enough to medical care. It's yours if you want it." Lena looked at me, uncertainty flickering. "I don't know how to feel about this." "You don't have to decide now," I told her. "You don't owe anyone anything." She accepted the documents anyway, tucking them carefully into her bag, as if the option itself was a form of safety. 2 weeks later, the doctor cleared her for travel. Short distances only. Frequent breaks. No stress. Reese packed the car himself, checking straps, securing boxes, thinking 3 steps ahead as always. Before we left, I stood on the cabin's porch and took one last look at the lake. This place had sheltered us at our most vulnerable. It has given us time, Time to think, to heal, to plan. I silently thanked my grandfather for choosing this spot all those years ago, for understanding that sometimes survival meant knowing where to disappear. The house Arthur had given Lena was nothing like the mansion she'd once lived in. It was modest but solid, set back from the road, surrounded by trees and open sky. The kind of place where neighbors waved but didn't intrude. Where mornings smelled like soil and pine instead of polish. Lena stepped inside and breathed out slowly. "I like it," she said. I smiled. "It feels honest." Reese spent the first night checking locks, installing extra lighting, and adjusting cameras. I unpacked the kitchen. Lena rested on the couch, one hand on her stomach, watching the afternoon light shift across the floor. "I don't feel trapped here," she said suddenly. "That's how you know," I replied. The first trimester ended quietly. Lena's strength returned in small increments. Longer walks, steadier sleep, laughter that came more easily. She started working remotely again, her sharp mind finding comfort in numbers and patterns she could control. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sky turn pink and gold, she spoke without looking at me. "I was ashamed," she admitted. "For a long time. Ashamed that I stayed. That I didn't see it sooner." "There's no shame in surviving," I said firmly. "Shame belongs to the people who caused harm." She nodded. "I know that now. But knowing and feeling aren't always the same." "That's true," I agreed. "Be patient with yourself." Reese visited often, sometimes staying the night, sometimes just stopping by with groceries or news. The audits had begun quietly. The Foundation's leadership was shifting. Names were being removed. Oversight increased. "Systems don't like being exposed," Reese said once. "They resist. But they adapt." "So do people," Lena replied. Spring arrived early that year. Buds appeared on trees. Birds returned, loud and insistent. Life pushed forward in undeniable ways. Arthur kept his distance, as promised. When he did reach out, it was cautious, respectful. He asked after Lena's health. After the baby. Never demanded access. Never assumed forgiveness. One afternoon, Lena closed her laptop and turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking about names," she said. My heart lifted despite myself. "Oh. If it's a girl," she continued, "I want to name her Zora. After your grandmother." Emotion caught me off guard, sharp and sudden. She would have liked that. "And if it's a boy," Lena added, smiling faintly, "Nicholas. After Grandpa." I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. They'd both be honored. Lena looked out at the garden, where small green shoots were breaking through the soil. "I want my child to know where they come from," she said. "Not just the pain. The strength. That's how stories survive," I said. "By being told whole." Late one night, months later, my phone rang. Reese's name lit the screen. "It's time," he said simply. Labor came hard and fast. The drive to the hospital blurred into contractions and reassurance, into Reese's steady voice and my own hands gripping Lena's. The delivery room was bright and focused, all sterile efficiency and quiet urgency. I stayed by her side, wiping sweat, whispering encouragement, grounding her when fear threatened to rise. When the baby finally cried, a sharp, indignant sound that cut through everything else, I felt something in me break open. "A girl," the doctor announced. "Healthy." They placed her on Lena's chest, tiny and fierce, dark eyes blinking as if taking stock of the world. "Zora," Lena whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Welcome." In that moment, the past loosened its grip. In the days that followed, exhaustion mixed with joy. Arthur came once, standing quietly in the hallway, respect written into every movement. Reese hovered like a proud sentinel. Life did not become perfect, but it became ours. And that, I understood at last, was the victory. The weeks after Zora's birth blurred into a rhythm of feedings, half sleep, and quiet wonder. Time lost its sharp edges. Nights were long but purposeful. Days passed marked by small milestones. The way Zora's fingers curled with surprising strength, the way her eyes tracked movement as if she were already trying to understand patterns in the world. Lena moved carefully at first, body still healing, but something in her posture had changed. She no longer folded in on herself. She stood straighter, even when tired, as if motherhood had rebalanced her center of gravity. Fear still visited, especially in the quiet hours before dawn, but it no longer ruled. I watched her learn her daughter's language with the same focus she once brought to her work. Which cry meant hunger, which meant discomfort, which was simply protest at being placed down. Zora had opinions. She expressed them loudly and without apology. "She's stubborn," Lena said once, smiling as she rocked her gently. "Family trait," I replied. Reese became a fixture in the house, drifting in and out with the easy presence of someone who had chosen responsibility without resenting it. He built a cradle with his own hands, sanded the edges smooth, reinforced joints that didn't strictly need reinforcing. When Lena teased him about over-engineering it, he shrugged. "The world's rough," he said. "No harm in making things solid." Arthur kept his distance, as promised. When he did come, he called first, asked permission, and stayed only as long as Lena allowed. He brought practical gifts, diapers, a heavy winter coat sized for the following year, books instead of toys. He watched Zora with a strange mixture of awe and restraint, like someone afraid to disturb something sacred. "I didn't know it could feel like this," he admitted once, quietly, when Lena stepped out of the room. "To look at someone and feel hope." I studied him carefully before answering. "Hope is a responsibility," I said. "Not a reward." He nodded. "I'm learning that." Not everyone accepted the new reality so easily. Gavin came on a warm afternoon when the trees were heavy with leaves and cicadas buzzed relentlessly in the background. His car appeared at the end of the drive without warning, unfamiliar in its shine, out of place against the quiet of the house. Lena froze when she saw him through the window. Zora slept against her chest, warm and trusting. "I'll handle it," Lena said, standing slowly. I moved beside her instinctively. Reese, who had been repairing a fence post, straightened and turned, eyes narrowing. Gavin approached the porch hesitantly, hands empty, shoulders slumped in a way that might have been humility or might have been calculation. He looked thinner than I remembered, eyes shadowed, hair no longer perfectly styled. "Lena," he said softly, "I just want to talk." She didn't invite him in. She didn't step aside. "You should leave," she replied. "I know I don't deserve." He stopped himself, swallowing. "My father told me about the baby." Lena's expression didn't change. "And I want to see her," he said. "My daughter." The word hung between them, heavy and fragile. "No," Lena said calmly. Gavin flinched. "Please. I know I failed you. I know I failed before. But I'm trying to change." "Trying now doesn't erase what you allowed then," Lena replied. "You knew I was being hurt. You did nothing." He looked at the ground. "I didn't know how to stand up to her." "That's the problem," Lena said. "You never did." Zora stirred, letting out a small sound. Lena adjusted her automatically, protective without thought. "She deserves better," Lena continued. "Better than silence. Better than fear. Better than a father who chooses comfort over safety." Gavin's eyes filled, but he didn't argue. He seemed to understand, finally, that there was no appeal left to make. "I'll wait," he said quietly. "In case you ever change your mind." "You shouldn't," Lena replied. "Build a different life. Don't anchor yourself to ours." He nodded once, then turned and walked back to his car without another word. When he was gone, Lena exhaled slowly, like someone setting down a weight she had carried too long. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Yes," she said, surprising herself. "I really am." That night, as I rocked Zora while Lena slept, I thought about how strength often revealed itself, not in confrontation, but but in clarity. In knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Months passed. Seasons shifted. Zora grew, her personality unfolding in determined bursts. She laughed early, a sharp, delighted sound that filled rooms. She studied faces intently, as if memorizing them, as if deciding who belonged. Lena returned to work part-time, balancing spreadsheets with feedings, conference calls with nap schedules. She thrived in the structure, in the proof that her life could hold complexity without chaos. Reese took a position closer to home, his presence a steady reassurance. He never hovered, never intruded, but he was always there when needed. The audits concluded quietly but decisively. The foundation was restructured. Names disappeared from boards. Oversight increased. No scandal broke headlines, but money began flowing where it was meant to. That, Reese said, was the point. One evening, as autumn returned and leaves began to turn, Lena and I sat on the porch wrapped in blankets, Zora asleep between us. "Do you ever wish it hadn't happened?" Lena asked suddenly. "Any of it?" I thought carefully before answering. "I wish you hadn't been hurt," I said. "But I don't wish you back into a life that would have broken you slowly." She nodded. "Me neither." She looked down at her daughter, eyes soft but steady. "I'm not ashamed anymore." I smiled. "Good." Above us, the sky deepened into twilight, stars beginning to show. The world went on, imperfect and demanding, but no longer frightening in the same way. Zora shifted in her sleep, tiny fingers curling, already gripping the future with quiet insistence. And for the first time since that cold night in the woods, I felt certain. Whatever came next, we were ready.